tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another after show from Madam Secretary. It is season 1, episode 20, The Necessary Art. We are finally in the 20s. Only a few more episodes left of the season. Before we get started, please you can go and find us all on Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube at AfterBuzz TV, and I'm Sterling Cates, and you can find me on Twitter at Sterling Cates.
Hey y'all, I'm April Whisenhant, and you can find me on Twitter at April Whisenhant.
All right, let's get on into it.
Yeah.
So we start off the episode with it's a Russian submarine called the Yalta, and they are receiving some sort of orders, which seems like it's an attack. Order.
You can tell that they're stressed just by reading it. He's like, "Are you kidding?" Or I don't know what he says in Russian, but and then they says, "Yes, this came from whoever with the highest clearance giving these orders."
Right, and we were a little confused because it wasn't starting with MSEC for once. Usually we're starting, you know, from her perspective. So, but now we're seeing, you know, something is going down with this Russian submarine, and we don't really know what it is until later when they're in the Situation Room. MSEC's called there, and I like calling her MSEC now, because Daisy did it today, and I thought that it was a really fun nickname. So
you're like,
forgive me, I'm gonna say it all. Yeah, I'm gonna say it all the time now. She has lots of different nicknames, but this is my favorite one. Anyways, so she's called to the Situation Room, and they reveal that there has been the submarine that has gone undetected. So the Russians have developed this new technology that eliminates any of the barriers so that the U.S. can track it.
Right, and kind of the crazy thing about it is because, so the submarine is on track with other submarines in a fleet, and then they get these orders, and like you said, we don't know what they are at first, but then, you know, the camera kind of pans over to the Doppler, and you see that they're now going off course toward America. Yeah. So, and then, like you said, this submarine all of a sudden disappears because they're working on this new stealth technology, and it can't be detected by satellite, sonar, anything. So now there's just this submarine heading toward America that we have no idea why it's heading
or what it's capable of.
Exactly.
And so not only has the submarine vanished coming into U.S. coastal waters, but also the Russian president can't be found. He's not picking up the phone. He's not communicating with America at all.
Yeah, we know what he's doing the entire time because he wants to take Henry hunting.
Yeah, exactly. So meanwhile, while all of this is going on, they refer to it as Russian war games. So I guess what they're doing off the Alaskan coast is it unprecedented for the Russians to be doing, but when a submarine goes undetectable or you know whatever, it's obviously it poses a threat.
Well, and it's a nuclear submarine, so there are nuclear weapons that could virtually wipe out a large section of the United States very quickly. So obviously this is a major problem.
Right. And MSEC, as I call her, realizes that the reason, you know, that Russia could potentially be wanting to you know, bully America in a way is because they don't want the U.S. to put the NATO troops in Latvia on the Russian border, because that also poses another threat. So it's really just a back and forth of, it's really just, you know, whose defense is better or what's happening, but it's a competition, and they want them to back off the border.
Well, basically, you know, the NATO troops being stationed in Latvia, which isn't that far from Moscow, which is the problem, has nothing to do with them, but it's just the fact that we are putting troops so close to them that they don't like. And she kind of expected a little backlash from it. She's like, I expected something, but not for them to send a nuclear submarine, you know, with their new stealth technology toward America. And, you know, this is just very reminiscent of Cold War stuff, because it was always a battle of like, who has the best technology and who's getting the satellite up and who's doing this. Right. And so they're just kind of worrying that it's going back toward that, because the president is, what's his name? Ostrov, President Ostrov. Yeah. He's kind of known. he's kind of known for grandstanding and doing these kind of crazy moves. But this is a war move, technically. It's, you know, a crime against America.
Well, they don't want, you know, their borders to be compromised. And so they're kind of like, if you're going to do this to us, then we're going to do it to you. And more aggressively at that. So let's pause there with that. And so meanwhile, Henry has taken this new job. Whatever it is still, we're not really sure the definition of it. It's really, so far he's been an inside man on a lot of these, you know, things that can't be as public.
Well, technically, he's going to be a professor at the military university, so teaching all of these future, you know, military and government leaders. But in this episode, they have him going on a special lecture to, where do you know? Russia.
How convenient.
Right.
So yeah, he's going to Russia to give this lecture to military leaders in Russia while all of this stuff with the submarine is going on. But during his lecture, he is interrupted by the president, President Ostrov, who comes in just when Henry's starting. So he doesn't really actually ever get to give the lecture.
No, he just says, he's like, it's about something has to do with religion and Islam and then East and West Christianity, and then it's like, no. Well, then that's what his ideals are all behind, are, you know, religious warfare and how that pertains to it. But
yeah, well then that's rudely interrupted by the president, who America can't get in touch with at all. He's not answering the phone. They need to figure out this whole submarine situation. So obviously there's something going on here with the president. He wouldn't just show up at Henry's lecture without a reason there. But he asked Henry to go hunting with him.
Right.
Which in most cases would be a very high honor for Henry, but it seems like he has a little hidden agenda here.
And Henry, you know, we have to point out, doesn't even know what's going on at this moment. He just knows that the Russian president randomly showed up in his lecture, and Ostrov keeps saying, like, you are, you know, a very esteemed person. Of course I want to meet you. And then he invites him to go hunting and kind of whispers in his ear, like, so is your wife.
Yeah.
And so then I guess he kind of can tell that things are fishy.
I feel like Henry's got to know at this point that nothing is off the table with this new job, especially, and with having his wife as the Secretary of State, like, anything can happen, especially when you're dealing with leaders of other countries.
Yeah.
But while they're hunting, the president, Ostrov says to Henry to tell his wife and president that we don't back down. So it was a very aggressive little jab he made there to Henry. And Henry's like, I still have no idea what's going on, but I'll be sure to tell them.
Right. Well, he kind of, I mean, as the president of a country, like, you have to clearly understand that, you know, you're making this move, or you're, you know, technically in charge of this move, even if the direct orders didn't come from him, and he's refusing to even speak to anyone about it. That in and of itself doesn't make a good leader, as far as, you know, you have to be able to talk to someone and negotiate and let them know what you're doing. But at this point, he's even refusing to do that because Beth says, MSEC tells us that he's kind of been running his country into bankruptcy, trying to get his military back up to, you know, kind of Western standards. And because it hasn't been as, what's the right word, like, highly powerful as ours are. We've just been coming up with the new stuff, and so he's been bankrupting them in order to do that, and he just needs to make a move to say, hey, this is what we have and you don't. Well,
and like she said, he's not one to admit when he's wrong or if something's not going as planned, and so he's never going to appear to be weak, especially in the public. So not only does, you know, America doesn't really know what's happening here, the president and MSEC don't know what the point of this is, and neither does the Russian public. So President Ostrov really isn't communicating what's happening with anyone, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, what Ezra points out about, well, why? Because he is such a showboaty type of person, like, why isn't he being more public? So we'll talk about that in a second. But meanwhile, while you know, this hunting scene is going on, they're back in the Situation Room, and everyone is figuring out what the best tactic to do is. And he suggests that they first mobilize the troops in Latvia, and then also deploy the Sixth Fleet's flagship thing. So
Yeah.
basically have a counter attack to what's happening. It's very aggressive attack, which is a war move.
Right, because at this point, the submarine, you know, it was undetected for a long time, and then it came back up. So basically they made themselves detectable, and it's like 12 miles or something like that off of the coast of Alaska. So that's, and I think she even says there's some kind of line, I forget what she called it, line below the ocean, that if, you know, they, you know, do something to that, it can totally just ruin the coast. And what if they're trying to plant spy material on this line? So it's just they also don't get why all of a sudden they've made themselves known if, you know, for the
they're trying to be secret the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're trying to be still.
But you can tell that Elizabeth doesn't really want to, you know, obviously take the most aggressive option at this point, which is what everyone's kind of agreeing on. And they said the surest sign of strength is showing that we are able to use it, and that's kind of like what President Dalton's going off of. And he even says they want to take out the submarine by whatever means necessary. So they're going to give the Russians 2 days to remove the submarine from U.S. coastal waters, or else they're going to take it down themselves, killing everyone on the submarine. When President Dalton said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like we are like doing this.
Because
here we go.
You know, Beth said it herself. That's virtually starting a war there.
And he just kind of said, you know what, this is happening. They can't say that we didn't warn them, but that's what we've got to do, because we can't have an attack and then, you know, and then something happen. And also, I was thinking, if this one submarine is in there undetected, you never know really how many other submarines there could be.
Right. Well, I guess you would know if they veered off course. So if they were they can't like totally be 100% completely stealth, like get in the water and no one can see them. I don't know how well we track that kind of stuff, but I imagine it to be very well, especially being Russia.
They only noticed this one because it was in a fleet and then it went off course, and now we have no idea where it is.
And the whole thing is the reason why he's kind of wanting to take this drastic of an action is because, just like we said earlier, they still haven't talked to anyone who can tell them what is happening whatsoever. We only just have no responses. And so they're just kind of worried exactly like where this could go, because I'm not sure which general it was in the Situation Room, but he says, you know, let's say they did attack Juneau. He's like, it would be gone in 30 seconds and they could be to Seattle, then to LA. And since you have no idea what it can do because it has this stealth technology. I mean, is this a real thing? Are there actually submarines that can do that? Because I think so. I hope there are.
Well,
it's cool.
I'm sure there is. But meanwhile, back in Russia, Henry is at the church where President Ostrov is as well, and he kind of catches him praying to this particular. It was Saint Nicholas, who is, as Henry teaches us, is the saint that you pray to when times are tough, or when things have gone against you and you need kind of some sort of rescue. And so that kind of raises some flags for Henry, and he's like, what's, because he seemed so confident earlier, so what is actually happening here?
Right.
And it kind of goes along with, so this guy, we'll talk about him for a second, Ezra Helsinger, has been serving the country for 60 years. He is finally retiring. He has seen it all, done it all. And even though MSEC cleared her schedule, this was the only event that she couldn't miss because it would be obvious that she wasn't there. So she ends up talking to him and finds what he has to say very insightful, because he put all of the pieces together. He's like, I've seen this before. You cleared your schedule. I know what's happening. And so she ends up meeting with him, and he raises the point about, you know, well, why isn't Ostrov being more public about this? Why isn't he bragging about this? Something must not be going as planned. And so then that kind of coincides with Henry seeing President Ostrov at the church. So obviously something isn't what we think it is.
He's a little distressed. Exactly. Yes. And I think it's such a simple point that he made, because he was like, don't think about their actions, think about their intentions, because he's saying that the Russians speak with intention. Obviously they do with action, of course, but there's always an intent behind it. And that's kind of the thing that they can't figure out. So just even pointing that out, I'm like, this man does not need to retire. He needs to be part of our staff.
Right, exactly. Well, as we see at the end, they're going to stay in touch.
Yes.
I like his character, though. I like having him around. He's like the wise older man. in the picture, so I like that. But meanwhile, so we gave Russia this 2-day notice. Otherwise, we're going to take down the ship ourselves. And I mean, the submarine ourselves. And so they send is it the Highland or whatever the ship is?
So the Kirkland.
Kirkland, that's it. I was thinking about the street. And anyways, but they attack the submarine.
They don't necessarily attack
They send down the
depth charges. So this is basically to make the submarine come up.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I mean, it definitely like does some sort of damage to the submarine, but it's not meant to do damage. It's just to make you surface.
It's not meant to like injure anyone or anything.
Exactly.
But they respond to the depth charges with a torpedo. So
that hits the Kirkland.
That hits the Kirkland, and there were some injuries. They didn't say any deaths.
No deaths reported.
No deaths reported, just injuries. But still, it's a torpedo versus just the depth charges. But Russia says that, you know, this is self-defense. We thought we were being attacked, but anything further than what just happened, we will assume it's a war threat, and we will respond with overwhelming
brute force, something like that.
Yeah.
But and this is the first we've heard from the Russians about it. So I'm kind of in the mindset of like, is it a good thing that we did that? Because at least they responded to something.
Got something out of them. Yeah. But then later we learned that when we get down and are able to communicate with them, and they say, you know, the captain is no longer in charge of the ship.
He kind of panicked, and that's why they sent the torpedo.
Yeah, because they were having malfunction with new technology. He said 42 people are already dead, but they were told by the leader not to allow U.S. military on board, not to
accept help or anything.
Accept help, and if it comes down to it, to destroy the submarine, basically allowing them all to die, kill themselves, because he just doesn't. The Russian government doesn't want to be wrong, basically. And they're saving face,
right? And this is all kind of Bess's idea to use this tool, because it's the kind of submarine that, I guess it's notated that it has no way to defend itself. So when the Russians see it, they'll know, like, as it's approaching, there's no way this could attack you, whatever. And so the thing, like, reaches out its arm and taps this all in Morse code onto their submarine, which, good for her, because the other guy in the Situation Room is like, let's attack it, let's kill the submarine.
Well, and even President Dalton's on that same page with, you know, taking the most forceful route. But luckily,
it's kind of a tough decision, though, because think about it. He made, you know, the general, or I'm not sure of his title, he made a great point in the Situation Room. He's like, we can't allow American lives to be risked for this, you know, because we don't know why they're there, and we don't know why they're moving. And I mean, that's a good point, because for a second I'm like, I mean, no, you bombed the submarine. Right. But then, I mean, I get the mindset. Obviously, you don't want to lose lives no matter what if it can be avoided. But while the machine is tapping the Morse code onto the Russian submarine, you see they think like another torpedo is launching, because it's they say something opens up on the side and it's flooding.
But it's really just the
distress buoy.
Yeah, the buoy.
So they're all kind of like freaking out for a second and thinking that it was another torpedo that they were about to release.
Right. And but MSEC, in every episode we've seen, she always kind of obviously tries to find the least violent way. Like, she's always like, let's talk it out.
Well,
let's see what we can do. And that's her job. And thank God she was there, because otherwise, you know, who knows what would have happened. But so she suggests that they use their back channel, aka, oh my gosh, Henry is in Russia. How convenient. So to get to the president and to talk over a deal with him, to where, because the troops on the submarine only have 2 hours left of oxygen before they're all gonna die. So they have to figure out something fast, and something that Ostrov will agree to. So Henry sits down with them. They bond over their grandfathers.
Henry just knows how to do it.
He just knows what to say, like, and when to say it.
He can talk the Russian president down. I mean, Henry's got skills.
So Henry, needless to say, saves the day once again, and Ostrov agrees to call President Dalton to make some sort of deal. And we find out later that the deal was that all of the people on board the submarine that survived, so there were 20 survivors, but they wouldn't be able to go back to Russia because they would be punished for mutiny or whatever the president didn't Ostrov didn't want them back in the country.
Right.
And they can't ever talk to their families again or see their families again, but they will be promised new lives in America. So, I mean, but they had to save them. You know what I mean? They couldn't have just let them die.
Exactly. But good, I mean, Best point makes a good point later when she says it's kind of crazy that these men can't ever speak to their families again, can't even give them a sign to let them know that they're alive, all because Ostrov doesn't want to look weak.
Doesn't want to look bad, yeah.
By sending them home, it lets them know, oh, there was a mutiny. There are problems with, you know, our Navy or whatever you would have it. And it makes him look bad. And so he ruins these 20 people's lives. I mean, I guess at least he let them live, of course. But he kind of ruins their lives and makes them, you know, come to America all because he doesn't want to look bad.
Right, exactly. It's ridiculous. But the one benefit for our government, though, is that in this process of the deal, we were able to get a look at the new technology that they were using for the submarine.
And we still get to send the troops to Latvia.
Yeah, and they're still deploying the troops to Latvia. So, like Russell says, we won this one. It probably wasn't the best outcome, but at least it didn't escalate, you know, to more. It wasn't the best outcome for the 20 survivors who never get to see their families again.
It was a good outcome for us and for Russia.
Yeah. So what can you do? Can't really do much.
America's great. Enjoy it.
Basically, you know, Henry and MSEC saved the day once again. And just to wrap up that storyline, I loved at the end when Ezra was talking with Madam Secretary. And first of all, he said, you're the right person for the job. Basically just boosting her confidence a little bit. But he referred to the quote, like, getting to the verge of war without going to war. And the name of this episode, the necessary art. So that wraps up that episode. The only other thing we have, not that episode, that storyline, is the whole Stevie Arthur situation.
Oh, the debacle.
So let's get into that. So we saw, was it last episode with everything with Harrison? Was that last week? Okay. So Harrison is the son of the president, President Dalton, and he has been going through some serious like drug issues.
Right,
and
back in rehab.
He's back in rehab, had another
not overdose, but
something.
He didn't overdose, but he just something bad with heroin.
Something bad, happened. And obviously, Stevie and him have a history. I guess they dated when they were like in middle school.
Right.
But they've always been best friends. And she is very protective over him. But Allison decides to post on Instagram or whatever it is.
A throwback Thursday.
Of them with Harrison, which sparks rumors on the internet that Stevie and Harrison are dating, that all this stuff is happening. And of course, Daisy gets involved. First, she doesn't think it's a big deal because, it's just typical internet rumors with the first family, blah, blah, blah. But Arthur, they're leaving from a date. This was weird to me.
This was so weird.
He said, he gets like an alert on his phone and he was like, oh, you've been like tagged in something. And he has an alert for any time Stevie is mentioned.
He says online. He has it for everyone in the office
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
He can make sure that they're not making any bad news or, making his
office
look
serious.
Bad. But I'm like,
I thought it was just creepy.
Kind of is the creepiest thing in the entire world. If my boyfriend was like, oh, every time someone posts or searches you, I can find out. No, that's really creepy.
I thought it was super creepy. Yeah. And plus he was like, he is a lot older than Stevie. We all know that. It's her boss. But he... she kind of picks on him for being an old man and kind of out of touch or whatever. And then he's like, oh, no, I have an alert for every time you're mentioned.
He says while he strangles you.
No, yeah, it was super creepy. I was like, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
But when Daisy gets involved, she comes over.
She gets involved because Stevie calls her.
Well, because
Stevie's worried.
Well, Stevie is just at that point being protective of Harrison. I don't think that, because if this is coming out about Harrison, it still hasn't been revealed that he has a drug problem.
Right.
So she's really worried that that's going to happen.
Because this is just going to bring more attention to him, and he doesn't need any camera on him.
It'll just all unravel once he's mentioned once, because I feel like the press hasn't really been an issue so much for MSEC's
kids.
family. Yeah, and I don't think they've been, you know, like harassed by the cameras or anything, because that is something that Elizabeth communicated. Look, you can say whatever you want about me, but you can't talk about my kids or my family. So, I mean, which is, you know, just classy MSEC doing her thing. But Stevie's not so concerned about it for her sake. It's more so for Harrison's. So she calls Daisy in. Daisy sits Allison down and says, look, you can't post personal pictures, especially pictures with the first family or anything about that, which, you know, is kind of sad for a teenager. She wants to, like, post stuff about her life and that sort of stuff. But
it's sad
it just comes with the territory. It just comes with the territory, for sure. But through this, so it seems like all resolved. Daisy doesn't seem very concerned about it. It's just, you know, typical internet drama or whatever. But she finds out kind of on accident that Stevie is actually dating her boss, Arthur. She's like, you're not dating your boss or something, are you? And she's like, oh.
Well, Stevie, I mean, I'm like, just say no. I guess at this point, it's better to just get it out there. But Daisy says, she's like, the 3 words that can never be put together are intern, boss, and sex.
Which is true, and especially when your mom is the Secretary of State, like, you can't be involved in that sort of drama. And plus, he has a freaking alert when you've been, like, a Google alert about you, which is just weird.
Run away.
Run away. Yeah, but so she ends up, but Daisy's like, you have to end this right now, which is pretty surprising coming from Daisy, and she listens to Daisy because she lays it out there as, look, this can be really bad. First of all, for him, if this comes out, he's going to look like he's going to ruin his career. It's going to ruin this whole microloans program that you've worked so hard for and are so passionate about. And not only that, but it's just terrible press for your mom.
Exactly. Well, it wouldn't only ruin Arthur. You know, she makes the point of the microloan program was already one that was on the chopping block. This is something that you're passionate about. So this is that's an excuse for someone to go after MSEC and say, oh, well, look what happened in this program, and cut it. And so it's not just going to ruin his life, other than, like, making him lose his job, of course, and looking really bad. It's also going to ruin something that she was extremely passionate about, and that really helps a lot of people.
Yeah. I love that it wasn't Elizabeth and Henry that made her break up with Arthur, and that it was kind of Daisy kind of putting a little... At first, I would have liked Stevie to figure it out on her own, but I'm glad that it wasn't the parents, because that would just push her away more. That is very much like her personality to do that. But she meets Arthur at this bar, which I don't even know if she's old enough to drink. But anyways, side note.
Yeah, something.
They meet at a bar, and she breaks up with them and, you know, basically just says it's too risky. And then she gets a little sassy, and it's just like, you're too old.
Well, because she just knew he wasn't going to settle for it.
He wanted to hear, like, he needed to hear something, like, immature or something. And then he ends it with, see you around, kid. And I was like, oh, don't call someone that you, like, have slept with a kid.
Yeah. Well, she says she's going to quit him and quit the job. And so he's like, at least, you know, think about not quitting the job, because this is something that you're really passionate about. And then it really is kind of just like a, like, slap on the shoulder.
Well, I really hope that both of them are mature enough to where she can still work for the microloans program, because she is really passionate about, and I don't think she should have to give up both.
Right.
But I mean, it can cause some awkward tension.
Has that ever worked before?
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I mean, maybe there's other outlets she can work with microloans for. It's hard to say. But I mean, we'll see what she does. I'm not really, like, super worried about it.
I'll figure it out.
I'm thinking that this Arthur storyline wasn't the most popular, so they're like, just like, let's kill it now.
I think so too.
But yeah, so that pretty much wraps up the episode. Let's get into some predictions.
Yeah.
And now
I haven't had many, and now I have more.
You do? Oh, good.
Predictions.
Since we're on the topic of Stevie, let's start with her. I predict that her and Harrison will be together.
Ditto. I think Harrison will be better, but then I think that's something that could, like, carry into season 2. like him
sure.
having more troubles and how it kind of affects her. But I think that they're going to make them into a thing. It's just even the way she speaks about him. She's like, no,
I think she
we liked
loves
each other a
him.
long time ago, but it's nothing. And
Yeah.
it's clear that she does. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing. I think the Arthur storyline is going to be just over. Maybe we'll see him a few more times just to kind of, you know, throw in that drama like, will this happen, won't it? But I think it's mainly dead.
Well, I'm really hoping that Arthur is mature enough to handle this in the right way, because he has a lot of information, especially about Harrison and him having a drug problem, which hasn't been released to the public. And so so like if Arthur is to do that, is to release it and to leak that information, then I don't know if I'd really like that, because he's like older, shouldn't be doing those like old games. But I don't know. But I could see that happening though, like as a jealous like ex-boyfriend type of thing. But I don't think this is that kind of show. No. You know what I mean?
It's too petty.
But I do think that it will come out at some point
I do too.
in the near future about it, because it's kind of like walking on eggshells right now. Everyone kind of knows it's got to come out eventually.
Yeah.
And Allison could kind of tell something was up. She was like, why? Is something not right? Or
Allison, the curious little cat all the time.
I miss Jason this episode.
Me too.
No, I love him. So any other predictions?
I have a crazy one. Or I have like a good, I'm like, oh, he would so be good at this. I am fully on board for Henry for president.
Henry for president?
Because he's so diplomatic. Everyone loves him. Like, the man is just smart. And imagine the husband, wife, president, secretary of state duo. I mean, I know it's not going to happen.
I kind of would want Madam Secretary to become president before Henry.
Yeah. I would too,
just
for sure.
Because
But
I know
she
to,
doesn't
like,
want to.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he'll become president, but
I
maybe
don't think
he
so
will.
either, but I don't think so either.
I just love him so much as like the supportive, not only supportive husband, but also he helps her a lot with the job. He's good at what he does. I don't know. That is a kind of crazy prediction.
I want some more secret and NSA, CIA, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we always want more Henry, whatever else.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, April, where can the people find you?
Y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at April Whisenhant.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sterling Cates. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next episode.
Yeah.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.